Well, week 2 of the preseason is over. It's time to preview week 3 between the Buffalo Bills and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bills game last week, usually I'll go into a little bit of an in-depth analysis of it before I preview week 3. This week we're going to skip that. 38-0 against the Chicago Bears. No starters played, but the backups are on high alert. We'll get into some of the position battles later for the Bills. Let's start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, though. The first thing I want to highlight with the Buccaneers is their backup quarterback spot because Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater, is back in the NFL. Had a nice game last week, 6 for 11, 85 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Kyle Trask is also an option for them at backup quarterback. Didn't have as good of a game last week, but also, I would say, has a higher potential, a little bit younger, right? Teddy Bridgewater, you know what you're going to get. He's towards the very end of his career at this point. We look at their wide receivers. Of course, we all know that Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, is probably going to come back at some point. We don't know when, but Mike Evans is their number one. The wide receiver 3 spot is where I have highlighted here, though. Tez Johnson is certainly an option. Jalen McMillan, Sterling Shepard, and then Emeka Agabuka is also an option there. So this wide receiver 3 spot is going to be interesting. Again, I'm pre-recording this video earlier in the week, so I think this is going to come out Tuesday. I'm recording it Monday. I don't know who's playing. I don't know if starters are playing in this game, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if they start all their receivers, this is going to be a fun one to watch. Running back, of course, Bucky Irving is pretty solid. Rashad White is also pretty solid. Sean Tucker, DJ Williams, and Ramon Jefferson have got to have good games in order to snag that last running back spot. Their secondary is pretty solid as well. Zion McCollum is going to be a player I want to watch in this game. Let's look at their game last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. A walk-off field goal, 42-yarder from Chase McLaughlin. It was pretty solid. Decent game for the Buccaneers. Nothing too notable. Bucky Irving had a touchdown in the back corner of the end zone. Sterling Shepard had 3 catches for 47 yards. Tez Johnson had a nice 34-yard punt return. Overall, though, just a middle-of-the-road game. Nothing to get too excited about if you're a Bucs fan or a Steelers fan. Now let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. The main event of this video, you could say. Absolutely blown out by the Chicago Bears last week. Again, it doesn't bother me, but there were some things that I think really stand out. Let's start with the safety position. What are the Bills going to do at safety? This has been a weak spot since Micah Hyde and Poyer have left this team, and they have not gotten any better at this spot. I mean, they still have Damar Hamlin, who, again, I'll always root for, but has just looked pathetic in preseason so far. 2 terrible performances from him. Cole Bishop played a couple drives, and man, he was the worst player on the field when he was out there. Just absolutely torched every single play he was out there, just crossed up. And again, I get it, he's coming off injuries. He hasn't had a whole lot of reps, but that's the issue with a guy like Cole Bishop. The potential's there, but he just hasn't had enough reps. So do we feel comfortable sending Cole Bishop out there and starting week 1 against Lamar? I don't know. Taylor Rapp did not play, so you know what you're getting with him, right? You're getting a explosive guy who's going to overcommit sometimes, but overall a solid safety. Nothing too special, but again, somebody who's fun to watch, at least in that safety spot. Then you got Jordan Hancock, who is the rookie. Had a shoulder injury. Again, I'm recording this on Monday. I don't know the details of that shoulder injury. Hopefully nothing too serious. He was pulled from the game right after it happened, though. If he continues to look good in the preseason, I would almost argue that he's going to be a starting safety by the middle of the season, the way these safeties look. Now let's flip over to the offensive side of things. Wide receiver still a little bit of a concern for me. Keon Coleman has looked good in camp, but nothing last week, did not play, so nothing really to talk about with him. Of course, Khalil Shakir, ankle injury. He'll be back week 1. Not worried about him. We know what we have in Khalil Shakir, a very solid slot receiver who can maybe step up to be a top 20 receiver in the league, but I'm not expecting those kind of numbers because the Bills do like to spread the ball around the field. Tight end is something that, again, we're lucky we have Knox and Kincaid because the backup tight ends this preseason have been atrocious. Hawes has been bad. Latu had a bad drop. Davidson has been my biggest surprise disappointment this year. A couple bad drops this preseason, a couple bad penalties. I mean, he has just been lost out there on the field, unfortunately. And then, of course, the penalties, just undisciplined football all the way around. Special teams, offense, defense. Van de Mark had back-to-back false start penalties in the first quarter. That's stuff that just cannot happen, and I get it's preseason, and every team goes through these growing pains in preseason, but the Bills just got outclassed by a Bears team that was mainly backups after the first quarter, and the blowout continued throughout the entire game. So definitely an area of concern there. I thought Frank Gore Jr. played another very solid game. He did fumble the ball. We know Sean McDermott sits people when they fumble it, so we'll see if that affects his roster spot at all. Hopefully it doesn't, because other than that fumble, I think Frank Gore Jr. has been one of the best players on this Bills team in the first two games. And honestly, if you combine the preseason games from last year and this year, I think he makes the all-Bills preseason team from those two teams. He has been very good this year, and hopefully he makes the team as that last running back. We didn't see any of Ty Johnson being one of my favorite players. Ray Davis continues to not get too many solid plays, which is a little bit of a concern, right? If you're a Bills fan, but the starting offensive line also didn't play. So when you have Ray Davis going against starting defenders with a backup entire offensive line, you're not going to expect him to get too many yards, and he didn't really get too many yards. To wrap this thing up, I guess this is going to be my final point of the preseason, because the next preview video I'm making is for an actual game, which I cannot be more excited to make. But the preseason is moving along very fast. Camp is over, training camp. Of course, the Bills have been back in Buffalo for a matter of weeks at this point. The biggest battles are certainly at safety, certainly, on that defensive line, who's that extra guy they're going to keep. Let's talk about one last battle, and that is going to be the backup quarterback spot, because Mike White looked good in week 1, but he looked atrocious in week 2. Mitch Trubisky, I thought, one-upped him a little bit in this game, but nothing to write home about. Shane Buechele continues to look like a backup to the backup. So I don't think we have to worry about Shane Buechele making this roster. But Mike White, Mitch Trubisky, if Allen plays week 3, I think it's maybe a drive or 2 drives. So I don't think we see a lot of Josh Allen. So that's going to be the main battle going into week 3. Both guys have been with the Bills for a little bit now, though, so I'm sure Brandon Beane isn't really relying on this Game 3 performance to sway his judgment one way or the other. But like I'll continue to say this entire preseason, if one of them shows out in one of these preseason games, I think that does help them and could potentially sway the judgment of Brandon Beane. But, a 120-yard performance versus a 110-yard performance is not going to have any effect on their roster spot. It would have to be like a 4-touchdown, 300-yard first half for Mike White or Mitch Trubisky, which they might need to one-up each other. So I think that's going to do it for this one. Again, game Saturday night in Tampa Bay. Last preseason game for both of these teams. We'll see if the Bills can tack on maybe a win, hopefully some points in this one at least. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and have a good one. Peace out.